Hi, this is the third discussion from Chapter 2, Perception. The topic is impression formation, and this video lecture will cover how we increase our accuracy in impression formation and also the process of impression formation. At the very end, there is a little bit on impression management, which I also call identity management. I realize the term impression being in the title of each concept can be confusing, so I'm hoping I can clarify it for you and maybe give you some strategies to remember it. So what is impression formation? Well, it's the process our brains go through every time we bring together bits and pieces of information, or the stimulus, and we form a perception of other people's traits, abilities, and personalities. Our impressions come from, or we form our impressions from, our culture, our experiences, our education, our knowledge, expectations of a particular situation, beliefs, values, and attitudes, our self-concept, even our physical self, and the language we choose. Just to briefly hit on a couple of these, I think we have an idea of how culture might shape our perceptions and experiences. I often have students from other countries, such as some countries from South America and Africa. Their culture, they are always surprised at how young people treat older people in the United States. They find it very casual. Almost disrespectful as compared to where they're from. So the word disrespectful, by the way, is my word. But usually they're much more quiet. They listen more to people who are perceived as their elders. That's just one example where culture could make a different filter for someone who's from another country, and they watch the interaction between, say, a senior citizen and a young person. Your education, your knowledge, expectations. I'm going to focus on that for a minute. And I'm sure you've had this situation or this happened to you where you hear about a movie, you hear how great it is, you liked the previews when you saw them on TV, you go to the movie and it stinks. Your expectations for how good this movie was were really high. My expectations can shape a communication interaction as well. If I expect myself to not do very well in a job interview, then maybe I will tell myself that I stutter and I usually can't think of a good answer at the time of the question. My expectations, I might go in and fulfill those expectations. Self-concept and physical self. So how can the physical self, my physical concept and my actual physical self, how can that possibly shape my communication interactions or shape my impressions? Well, depending on the language we use. If I'm about 5'5", if someone talks about a particularly tall woman, for me, that's going to be 5'9", 5'10". That's a tall woman to me. But somebody else who is 5'8" or 5'9" may find a woman who is 6 foot tall to be a tall woman. So perception changes even based on my physical self. And then finally is language. And language, there are two people, social linguists, named Sapir and Whorf, who put together this idea that language shapes your reality. So the idea that language shapes my attitudes, my beliefs. I say a lot about myself with my word choice. I say a lot about how my viewpoints with my language that I choose. And I just don't mean direct language, by my adjectives and my adverbs that I choose to use. Also, I may perceive people in a certain way based on the language choice. So in our perceptual process then, how do we put these things together? How do we form these evaluations? So you might remember this from earlier in the chapter, that this is our perceptual process: attention, organization, interpretation and evaluation, memory, and recall. This stage of the perceptual process, or these things I'm getting ready to talk about, happen right here: interpretation and evaluation. So what I'm going to cover now will be self-fulfilling prophecy, primacy, recency, stereotyping, and attribution of control. So a stereotype. I don't think you needed a speech class to have some kind of previous idea of the term stereotype, but it's a common shortcut in perception. It's a fixed impression of a group of people. Typically, we think of stereotypes in really broad strokes, like by sex, someone a man or a woman, by race, by ethnicity, by religion. But even within each of those broader types, we can look at co-cultures within those groups, such as police officers, college athletes, redheads, right? So what kind of stereotypes might we carry with us? And we all carry them. Stereotypes can also be something thought of as positive, not just a negative kind of thing. All Asians are good at math, right? So that sounds like a very positive stereotype until someone maybe struggles with math who's of Chinese descent, and then we have a negative feeling or negative perception because we're thinking, wow, I thought you were supposed to be good at math. So even something that seems so positive can be actually an unfair stereotype. If I'm going into a communication encounter, let's say I am sitting with people from a diverse group of people with different religions, and I want to talk about reproductive rights, and I notice that the person sitting next to me is wearing a crucifix. I might feel that I can't have a more open discussion because my perception is, well, this person won't even talk about different women's certain reproductive rights of women because of because there must be a practicing Catholic. So even sometimes when we're doing it out of politeness, respect, a cultural awareness, that can also still kind of limit our interactions with people. A second one is primacy, recency, and I realize there's a lot here to read on this slide, and you can always hit pause and read read these examples. But essentially, it's this idea that the first impression is the strongest impression. That's primacy. And if your most recent impression is the stronger, then recency is at work. I was using the example of meeting someone at a party, and then I find this new person charming. We have similar interests, and we end up developing a friendship. And I get to know the person better and better, more and more. Time may go by, and as time goes by and more self-disclosure happens, I'm seeing some characteristics and hearing some viewpoints that I don't agree with. Now, if I consider that the fondness of that person that I originally had, and our friendship continues, primacy is more important. If my interest wanes a bit, recency is the stronger impression. Okay, attribution of control. So what this means is I might try to justify someone else's communication behavior. Okay, so I might know some information about someone, and therefore all of their behavior might come down to this one particular thing I know about the person. That's actually an attribution error. But we would focus on why someone behaved the way they did. Then we evaluate it based on our perception of someone's control. So do we feel like someone is in control of their behavior? And we tend to be more forgiving if we justify that they weren't. However, there is this one term, self-serving bias, where we feel like something isn't our fault. So let me give you an example. If my friend didn't do well on a test, we both had the same test and my friend didn't do very well. My self-serving bias might be, it's not my fault the teacher doesn't like me anyway. How can I be expected to study? I have a part-time job and all of these activities. Why didn't your friend do that well? Well, she was partying. Or she blew it off and was Netflixing instead of studying for the test. So we have a little more of a negative attribute for the example where we feel like it was within their control. Okay, and the last is self-fulfilling prophecy. I think even before this class, you've heard the term. So it's when we make a prediction or formulate a belief and then act upon it, making it true. Now, the reason we can't just go, I'm going to get an A on the test, I'm going to get an A on the test. Well, I believe it, so I'm going to get an A, is because we also have to put all the actions, the behaviors towards that situation as if the prediction is true. Okay? So if I'm going to get an A on my psychology test, well, I'm also going to keep up with the reading. I'm going to take notes in class. I'm going to review my notes, and I'm going to really put in a couple of days of studying. Yeah, I'm going to get an A, and I believe I can get an A. Now, in a communication situation, an example could be, I feel like I don't do well in large social interaction. I don't do well. I don't know what to say. I'm not very good at making eye contact. So I go to this event for work, and I end up kind of staying off to the side. I have my phone out a lot because it does give me some comfort to text with a friend or something, but I have my phone out and I'm looking down at my phone, and I don't really interact with people. Here's the thing. My looking down at my phone and being a little bit standoffish also means people aren't going to probably come over and interact much with me. So because I didn't make that effort, and because I probably came across to others as standoffish, I in fact leave the event saying, yep, see, I'm terrible at these things. No one ever really wants to talk to me. So it's reinforced in my head. The crazy thing about self-fulfilling prophecy is it becomes reinforced because we can say, look, I was right. And that's kind of the crazy part of it. It just kind of keeps perpetuating then. All right. So the last part, increasing accuracy in impression formation. Successful communication equals accurate perceptions. So I would need to analyze my impressions. Did I see actually what I think I saw, right? I would need to know what was my mood, what was my role in that encounter. Second, checking my impression. Did I see what I actually saw? Could there be other possible interpretations? So those of you who chose the essay, you walk out of class, you see a friend in the hallway, and they keep going. Well, if I check my impressions, it could be other possible things, like maybe my friend had earbuds in. My friend was distracted because she just got a test back and she didn't like her grade. She was on her way to her next test, right? All right, reducing uncertainty. That just means instead of me hanging on to this and harboring, why did my friend not say hi to me in the hall? I have a couple of methods I could do. And these are discussed more at length in the book, but I could have a direct conversation. I could go up to my friend and go, hey, I saw you in the hall. I said hi. You didn't say hi back. What's going on? Or I could be indirect. And I could just go up to my friend and go, hey, how's your day going? And if my friend talks to me normally, I know everything is okay. That's the getting the lay of the land one. I could go up to a third person and say, hey, did you see Mary today? And, if they say, yeah, she's in a terrible mood. She's got so much to do. She didn't sleep much last night. Well, that also could help me reduce uncertainty and how to interpret her behavior. All right. And the last one is increasing cultural sensitivity, which means understanding people of different co-cultures. Even within our own culture here in the United States, there are multitudes of what we call co-cultures within it. So understanding behaviors goes a long way to increase our accuracy in perception. Okay, last, and I'm going to do this quickly, is impression management. It's the process we engage in to control the image you want others to have of you. It comes from communication, verbal and nonverbal. So if we want to be liked, we might wear a certain thing. We're going to smile more, right? To be believed, we might change our body language, again, making some eye contact. If we want to excuse failure, maybe like we're tossing our hands up in the air and going, who knew, right? Okay. And if we want to be followed, if we want to be persuasive, then we're going to, again, manage our impression. Think about how you would dress if you're going to hang out with friends, get some pizza, and watch Netflix for the whole night, right? You're probably going to be dressed super comfy, super comfy and all that. But let's say you've got a job interview. You're going to dress much differently.